Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Oh, can't hear.
I can see more people are joining in. I'm expecting a large group. So I invite everyone to turn on their videos. And maybe for those who have already joined and videos are working, let's just do a quick audio check. So, Kathleen, can you hear me? And can you say something?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Lisa Marie, can you hear? Great. Can you say a word just that we see that we hear you?
Good morning.
Wonderful. Thank you. David, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Rami.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jillian, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Thanks. I'm also seeing Sasha, Roland, Frederick, and Jed 19. If any of you want to turn on your videos, that'll be great. If you just want to listen in, that's possible too. I wouldn't be able to know if you'd like to participate or not. If you'd like also to chat with me directly, you can use the chat feature on the bottom and just change the setting to Rami, and we can troubleshoot. Okay, great. I see Roland. Welcome. Roland, would you like to say a word just that we hear you?
Hi.
Okay, great. Welcome. And if you all notice, I'm keeping everybody muted. And the way we'll do the council is that there will be a certain way of moving from one person to the other, and then I'll unmute you. So, because there's a lot of people and there's background noise. Jed?
Yes, it's Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer. Hey,
but I can't
great.
get my video on.
So we can't see you. We see a blank screen.
No, I do too.
Okay. So, okay. So good. I'm glad we can hear you. Frederick, Sasha, would you like to turn on your videos, or would you like to stay without? That's fine. We'll just, I would love to just know if you'd like to participate in the call or you just like to listen. If you want to chat to me directly, you can do that. That way it's private to let me know. Otherwise, what I'll do for Sasha and Frederick, I'm going to unmute you, and I wouldn't be able to know if you want to share or not. So if you do want to participate, just send me a chat message. Okay. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone being on time and being available. Let's take a couple of minutes and just settle in. And if you have a meditation practice, we can meditate for a few moments. And if you don't, maybe I'll just guide us on a brief meditation. And I will just say that we are recording this council call. Usually we don't record councils, but there's been a lot of people who are interested in just hearing about Bernie, and this is the subject of the meeting, so it will be wonderful to be able to share this. So thank you for understanding. So as you're finding yourself here in this call, breath and let it fill your body. Notice if the breath may fill up your chest in places that are tight. Maybe there's a sense of anticipation or excitement. And just let yourself relax. And notice if there's any tension around your face or around your shoulders. And notice if there's any little slight movements in your body that you can do to just make yourself even more available, more present. And for the time being, if there are any thoughts or any mental activity, you can just acknowledge them and return to just the sense, the felt sense of being here. All your other senses, whether they're hearing or seeing, be open to them and see how they connect you to right now. Bring a sense of appreciation of being able to take 90 minutes of your day. Maybe other people are helping with chores or with family or with work. Acknowledge this gratitude and a sense of privilege and welcome, Tony. We're doing a quick meditation just as a grounding. And as we'll be doing this meditation, maybe more people will join. We've already been joined by 2 more. So just maybe bring to mind a sense of connection right now. If your eyes are closed, maybe crack them open a little bit and browse the faces that are looking back at you on the screen. And while we only have their name right now, imbue that with an imagination of how all these people are calling from different places around the planet. We are literally connecting from this crust of this amazing planet, different places, experiencing different hours of the day, possibly even different seasons. And notice if that informs your sense of connection. Sharon Salzberg talks about loving kindness as connection. It's not only in feeling loving kindness or generating it within ourselves, it's actually in relation. And here we are. So as we move into our call and we move from the meditation, the grounding part of this call, I will guide us a bit about the format of how this call will be. And I also want to mark what we just did in terms of the meditation as a baseline. This is something that we can always come back to during our sharing, between our sharing, we can come back to this silence and really connect to our essence and what is wanting to come up in this moment. This is one of the guidelines of counsel that we'll be practicing, which is the spontaneity and speaking from the heart and coming to essence, which means not necessarily being short, but there is an invitation to take a moment and actually be silent and go in and see what's alive. And oftentimes when there's a silent connections within ourselves before we speak, what we share is actually very simple. So I invite us to use this silence as a friend throughout the next 80 minutes. Another guideline or intention in counsel is listening from the heart. And that is a very simple way of just being and just listening. And whenever our mind wanders somewhere, just come back to listening. And also imbue that with a sense of wonder, particularly around what the feeling of the other person who is sharing. Maybe they're sharing a story, or you may not necessarily connect with parts of it. A good way to return to listening is just to ask, I wonder how this person is feeling. There's something magical about feeling that is just connecting. And it's a good way to return to listening from the heart. Usually in counsel, we also request confidentiality in terms of keeping the counsel safe and as a place where people can share also vulnerable things. And I would still encourage you to do so. And I would also say that we are recording this particular council just because there's been a lot of interest and registrations, and some people couldn't make it. So it would be wonderful to be able to share this. So by continuing on being on the call, you're giving us the permission to do that. And also just if it requires a bit of adjusting in terms of how you share, thank you for being flexible. And for those who haven't practiced counsel before, I would also just say that this is not the dialogue in a traditional way, or that we may be talking to each other. It is really speaking from within meditation. We can see this whole 80 minutes, this whole 90 minutes as a form of a prayer or a form of a ceremony where our voices are things that move through us and we share it. And once we share those, there are gifts and they're gone. And usually it's practiced around a fire, and those are gifts to the fire. So if you do feel moved to refer to something that somebody else has said, refer to it briefly, but really come back to your experience of it. This is what we call speaking from the eye and speaking from the heart, of really relating to how your experience it is. And I would just ask for permission if at some point I feel as a facilitator that, some of the guidelines are not really held, or some of the container for the council has been moving to a direction of less connection. I just ask for permission to just jump in and maybe say a word or two. Otherwise, it will be really self-led, and I will also participate it, and it will be wonderful to just move around. So the way we will do this is that first we will do an invocation, and maybe I'll lead that, but others can also add. And this invocation will mark the formal start of the council. And then what we'll do is that the first person who feels called to begin, raise your hand, and I will call on you and unmute you. And then you will speak, and when you complete sharing, just take a moment of silence, just see if you're really done or if there's something else. And also just give time for whatever you share to just move on into the silence. And then just name another person in the circle. And hopefully everybody sees people's names. and that person will follow up. So that way I don't need to facilitate the next person. And once we exhaust the first round, I will come back again from the facilitator's role and move us again. Um, I will assume that the people who are not on video or don't want to participate, and that's completely fine. Thanks for just joining. So let's not call on the names of the people whose videos are not um, on. Okay, so so let's take again a moment to center in silence. And today's council is dedicated to Bernie. This is slightly a year over his passing, since his passing in Krakow last year. He was in Massachusetts. I was in Krakow. We were just about to begin the Auschwitz retreat in 2018. And here we are a year after. So if you've known Bernie, if you want to close your eyes and just bring his face to your mind, to your imagination, do so. I'll paint a little picture of him. His stocky body, sitting often on a chair, a bit hunched, his legs spread out in front of him, relaxed. His thick eyebrows sticking forward from his face pretty far. He had big eyebrows. His red beret pulled to his left. He may be sipping on a cup of cappuccino or having a cigar in his hand. He may be dancing, flipping, skipping from one leg to the other as he used to do. He may be gazing at you and deep listening as you spoke to him, as he was listening, taking you in. He may have been excited or fiery. His eyes would be flaring. He may have taken his voice as Rocky, the boxer, who used to teach through the voice of his boxer clown. His spaciousness, his appreciation of our oneness, his deep trust. So I'm invoking Bernie's presence here with us. Bernie, wherever you are, join us. I invite anyone else from the circle who want to invite someone else or something else or a particular image of Bernie. And that will mark our beginning, and then we'll move into it. So if you feel called to do another invocation, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. I want to invite also Eve's spirit, Eve's Marco, his wife, his other wives, Helen and Jishu. and his children, Alyssa and Mark. His family was very important to invite them and also invite him as a family. So, so Kathleen, yeah.
Yes, hello, everybody. I'd also like to invite Moshe Cohen, his clown teacher, as you mentioned, his Bernie's clown side also. So he's also very present for me here at this easiness or lightness or permeability that Bernie showed to me had a lot to do also with his, with discovering his clown self. And so I would like to invite Moshe too.
Thank you, Kathleen. In a way, you're inviting disorder into
Yes,
the council.
exactly.
That is also welcome. So as we move into our council, we're burning our hearts. Please just share how that's alive for you now. If you had a moment with him or a connection with him, share that. Or if you haven't had a direct contact with him, just how were you inspired by him or any other relation, way that you had with him. Thank you for sharing that. So, and we have Martin who just joined us, and Ray. Hi, Ray. We can't see you right now, Ray. So just to know that the way we have this is that people will be moving by calling the next person's name. And right now we'll only be calling people whose video we see. If you'd like to be seen, if you'd like to participate, maybe either just say a word now or send me a chat, and because otherwise we'll assume you don't want to participate, which is fine. You can just listen. Okay. So let's move into the council. And if you want to be the first person, just raise your hand, call on you, and then when you complete your share, just name another person. Also, please name where you're calling from, because we have a pretty amazing collection of people in location right now. So it'd be great to be able to locate each other. So I wonder, maybe a nice way to just like bring everybody in just for a quick, in a quick way. Let's just go around and just say your name, where you're calling from, and maybe a couple of words of feeling, just how are you feeling right now. My name is Rami Afal. I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm feeling grateful and inspired. Jennifer.
Hello. My name is Jennifer, and I'm calling from New York City. And I'm feeling very smiling right now. I'm smiling at you, Rami, but I'm in my office, and in my office I have Roshi smiling at me every day. And I love this because red is one of my favorite colors, and he's wearing a red beret. And on my altar at home, I have a different picture. When I was in Cuba last year, I bought him a Mojiba cigar, which sits there waiting to be enjoyed next to him. So I'm feeling very grateful and happy that I had Roshi Bernie and still have him in my life.
Would you name another person? And that way we'll move.
Oh, I thought we would just go. I see Kathleen next to me. But I don't know the order. I just see Kathleen. So.
Okay, yeah. Hi again. Kathleen is my name, and I'm calling from Bonn in Germany. It just turned dark, and I see a lot of daylight in some few places behind you. The windows, that's fun. Yeah. So yeah, it all sank in. I came from a kind of a hectic working day and managed to be here in time, and then everything you said just sank in. So I feel present. I feel very connected. I feel inspired. I feel as I just invited Moshe Cohen, I had a kind of memory flash, if you can say so, uh, about this and the gratitude of how much freedom it came to me out of the relationship with Bernie and the Zen Peacemakers as a whole. So there's a huge amount of freedom that I feel connected to. That it was something was setting me free in Bernie's nature and also in the connection with all of you. This is wonderful. So this is what I enjoy right now. I see Jillian next.
Hi, I'm Jillian, and I'm calling from Vancouver, British Columbia. And I'm feeling so lucky and thrilled that I'm here. I went to the Auschwitz retreat 3 years ago, so it was the last time Bernie was there. And so I feel really fortunate that I got to be in his presence, and I'm thrilled that I managed to work all the technology to get here. So I feel very hopeful. Thank you. And Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm from Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, and I'm feeling very connected to Bernie and this community. So I'm grateful for that. Is it? I'm sorry. It says Pareto office next to me.
Yes, that's Martin. Thank you, Tony. This is Martin. Martin from Melbourne, Australia, and I feel equally very excited and enormous amount of gratitude as I continue to learn about Bernie's life, his passion, his many, so I should say passions, not passion, but passions, and his many creative, insightful teachings and practices. As the more I listen to him, the more I read. I didn't get to meet Bernie, but through counsel, through meeting others and peacemakers, through podcasts, and through undertaking Jukai at the moment, it's I feel very near and close to him. So thank you very much for coming together. I'll pass it on to Anita.
Thank you, Martin. I'm Anita Klein. I live in San Francisco. And I'm feeling, well, lots of things. Very grateful to be here. Very very moved by a feeling of wonder at life. I'm 78 years old, and I'm so aware at this age, especially of how small the world has become, how things have arisen that have brought me in connection, and I just feel so held by all of that, and just being here today, so aware of remembering that moment when I read a book about socially engaged Buddhism and the Zen Peacemakers as an example of that, and in particular Bernie. And I thought, yes, that's what I want to do. And all that has arisen from that moment, including today here with you all. So really wonderful. Thank you. And I will go on to somebody whose faces, who I know from the Bearing Witness retreat in the Black Hills, Lisa Marie.
I think we're playing cross unmuted. I am called Lisa Marie, and I'm dancing on the Earth space called Colorado, and I'm feeling exuberant about connecting with you all and about honoring Grandfather Bernie Glassman. I call him grandfather ever since the Native American Bearing Witness retreat. And I am also in awe about how many of his golden threads have been woven into all of our tapestries around the world. I just feel really blessed and grateful, and glad to be here with the Dharma family of the Peacemakers. And I'll call on David.
Hello to everybody. I'm feeling this tingly, excited anticipation to connect with you all. I did not know Bernie, but I got home 3 days ago from Poland, where I finished the Bearing Witness retreat with Rami and 90 other beautiful souls. And I think my excitement I'm feeling now has to do with connecting with the broader network that you are. I'm deeply appreciative of the experience I had last week. And it feels like a stew inside of me that's still cooking. What I noticed yesterday, and this has to do with my appreciation of the model, the foresight of Bernie to set this up, was that I feel more dignified as a person sitting here today, having been through that process. I was able to complete with my parents who both survived Auschwitz in the Bearing Witness retreat. So my thanks to all of you for listening and to Bernie for his vision.
Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone. Let's maybe just take a moment to appreciate the introductions, people's voices. David, so
I'm from Hermosa Beach. I forgot to say that.
Wonderful.
Hermosa Beach, California, Rami.
Perfect. Great. So I was just going to ask everyone to just try to visualize for a moment, this, first of all, this spirit of Bernie that we've all invoked here, this order, this spaciousness and uniqueness, and then just try for a moment, just place that in Melbourne, Australia, Pennsylvania, in Germany, San Francisco, and Colorado, LA, Canada. And as we move into the next part of the council, if you feel you want to share anything relating to Bernie or just something that is alive for you right now, just raise your hand and I'll call you. Yeah, Jennifer.
I actually first met Roshi Bernie in September 1994. Hard to imagine. And I was just last Saturday at a birthday party for a man named Charles Halpern, who, too long a story about him, but he knew I was searching for a path, and I've always been an activist, and he said, I have the person for you to meet. You need to go meet Bernie Glassen, and gave me his address. And so my late husband Haywood and I, it was Labor Day, and we were driving around, and he said, oh, go visit this man. I said, you can't just pop into someone's house. But knowing Haywood, we drove up, and I went and knocked on this door, quite terrified, and out comes this man with a smile, and I introduced myself and Haywood and why we were there, just to say hello. And he he just opened the door and said, come in. And then he turns to Jishu and says, go make tea, please, which I teased him about endlessly, that she was assigned to go make the tea. So I went with her to make the tea, and we came back. But that was my beginning of this path that was quite, totally changed my life, or was the life that I am to have. He is coming into my life in Jishu's. And 2 years later, he led me through Haywood's death, being killed in South Africa. And that's something that, I just, from then on, there was, in some ways, Bernie was very formal. He wasn't a hugger. I'm a hugger. I'm a midwife. I'm always touching. He was not a hugger. And I could have seen that he was intimidating. But if you were patient enough and just kind of made the leap. Of course, he was a teddy bear and wise and joyful and serious. He was everything that with great humility. He's bright in my heart every day. So that my life unfolded and our paths became one and continue was something I every day marvel at, life's beauty.
Thank you, Jennifer. Tony, please.
I just wanted to share something that happened back in 1996, 97. I had hosted Bernie at Harvard to speak, and there was also the Buddhism in America conference going on. And the thing is, I want to share something that stands out in my mind is sometimes, I know being with Bernie in different social settings, sometimes he was very quiet and he would sort of sit off to the side, sort of watching everything happening. But when he came to our apartment, my son, who was 3 at the time, had made him a mask. And it was really, my wife and I both commented on it. It was so lovely. And this stands out for me as who Bernie really is. He got down on the floor and he put the mask on and he sat there and played with my son for probably a good 25 minutes. And like they were the only 2 people in the world. And that when I think of Bernie, I think of that story.
Lisa Marie.
I first was introduced to Grandfather Bernie through a Dharma brother who gave me some of his books that he had written a long time ago. And then within a couple of weeks of receiving those books and reading them, Grandfather Bernie came to Soji Zen Center in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia area. And he did a talk on the 3 tenets and did a book signing because he just wrote the book with Jeff Bridges. And my music group performed while he was signing the books at Soji. And then I got to go and listen to him give a Dharma talk at my Dharma sister's house where she was hosting him. And I thought his presence was very ordinary. He was just down to earth. He had a stogie in his mouth and he talked about the Dharma, about his opinion. This is just my opinion. And I appreciated that so much. He had a gruffness about him at the same time that he had a lightness about him. And I really, really have been influenced by his life since. The next time I saw him face to face and was able to practice with him was at the 2015 Native American Bearing Witness Retreat. And that was such a powerful retreat. Everyone there coming to bear witness and realizing that Bernie had created this social action with these 3 tenets of not knowing and bearing witness and showing up and taking action or no action based on the first 2. And his life has affected my life very deeply on a cellular level. So I read Instructions to the Cook if you saw this book, you would laugh. Every single page is dog-eared, marked, underlined. And I have bought copies of this and handed it around to communities in South Africa and in Australia, because I've had a circular vision as a result of dancing on 5 continents in 2017. And Grandfather Bernie's work with the 3 tenets and with the Bearing Witness retreats and with Grayston Family Inn and the Zen practice, all intertwined and threaded into this tapestry that's threaded within all of our tapestries, is an integral part of this circular community vision that has come up for me. I've been working with XR people, that's Extinction Rebellion people here in Colorado, young people, some older people who are also practitioners in different lineages, but they are familiar with Bernie and his work. They're familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh, where my Dharma name comes from. And that whole social engagement, that engagement with the earth, that goes back all the way to Shakyamuni Buddha, is flowing through our veins because of Grandfather Bernie's. I just feel like he's a flame that just won't go out. And I don't think it will ever go out because he's affected me and millions of others so deeply. And just this last week, I looked up the gates of Sweet Nectar, and I asked my partner, who's an electric guitarist and a guitarist musician, to learn it on the electric guitar. There's a beautiful YouTube of Krishna Das singing it, and Bernie's sitting right there. And he was just looking up and singing with him. And it was so beautiful to view that YouTube and see how it just affects his heart. I cry every time I hear it. And so I'm going to teach the Extinction Rebellion folks how to sing it so that we can sing it on the 29th of November for the climate strike, for all the hungry ghosts that go out on Black Friday, you know. And so his work continues to thread and create amazing tapestries throughout this cosmos. And I just feel so much gratitude and so much joy that I've been able to meet so many people, and that we have this technology and we're using it for this kind of connection. And I think Bernie is within all of us and is just smiling. I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here.
I just want to acknowledge and welcome Ray. Welcome. If you'd like to share, just raise your hand.
I had trouble with the technology my first time. I remember Bernie a few decades back with his gentleness and compassion for the homeless in Yonkers at the time. His going out unknowing, witnessing to who they really were, and then taking action or not taking action depending on the circumstance and what moved him through the spirit. That prompted me to adapt his simple practice in mine. We put together an outreach for homeless veterans, primarily on his wise counsel. And this December, we will be celebrating 20 years of all volunteers providing outreach to homeless veterans throughout the state of New Jersey, Northeast Pennsylvania, and now the entire state of Rhode Island. No borders, no boundaries. All volunteers, no brick and mortar, no salaries, no compensation. Bernie touched our hearts very, very sweetly and very, very simply. And we carry that practice to those who are in need and continue to be in need. If all of the folks that we had met over these 20 years could come together and hold hands, as we often did in Sangha practice, the line would extend about 22 miles long. I always use that vision when I tell people about what we do and how we do it and why we do it. I said, just think of your brother and sister holding hands one with another, and that line extending 22 miles from where you are. Now, I don't know where you are, but where I am, that goes from Long Valley, New Jersey to Morristown, New Jersey. That goes from Morristown, New Jersey to Paterson, New Jersey. That goes from Hackensack well to the tip of Lower Manhattan. All of those people suffering and you being with them in their suffering and letting them know they're not alone. I think Bernie was one, as we've heard all of the guests speaking, that gave us a warm place in our heart, and we did not feel alone either. And I think I owe that wonderful charism to his gentleness, to his knowledge, to his wisdom, and to his practice. So thank you, brothers and sisters, for allowing me to join you today for the first time. Namaste.
Kathleen.
I do it myself. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's so wonderful actually to hear all these patches of like a kilt that comes together now by our memories of this human being, Bernie. As Lisa Marie mentioned, the technology that brought back to my mind that my last encounter with Bernie was on one of these online meetings that you also, Rami, I think, facilitated and initiated in his last kind of, it was in June before he died, so June last year. And there were a couple of very few meetings where Bernie was online and was like, had an interest to meet with, I don't know, with the people from the Sangha, from the Peacemakers Sangha, with some of his students maybe. And I was in one of these meetings, and that was the last time I actually saw him on the screen. And I was just back from a week of peace that I co-organized in the concentration camp memorial of Buchenwald in the east of Germany. And I was very upset and worried because other than the Auschwitz-Birkenau place, which is so definitely destructive, Buchenwald seemed to me very normal, like almost a normal place, like a working camp. And this made me very nervous because I felt I didn't feel able to decide when is the time to stand up and say, this is not normal anymore. Was I able, I felt I didn't feel able to find that spot and actually had the fear that I was already past it, that I missed the point to say, no, this is wrong, this can't go on. Also in the present now, as we have this right-wing party in every government here again. And so I shared that in this meeting, and then Bernie asked back, so what exactly are you afraid of? And I try to say again, well, because I'm afraid to miss the right moment. And then he said, if you feel fear, then you're just not deep enough into not knowing. So this were his last words into my direction. And this is the the heritage, or the, how do you say that, the what I take from him as his last advice, sending me straight and ever deeper and should not know. This is what I'm trying to keep and to follow. And the other thing I would like to share is that I have a kind of a daytime story with Bernie, because I had actually, as I remembered last week on the 4th of November, when on the day he died, it became clear to me that I had 7 years of quite a lot of encounters with him. It was 3 times in the Auschwitz-Birkenau retreat, and in Felsentor, in the Swiss place, with 2 wonderful weeks and teachings, and a week in Belgium on the Gate of Sweet Nectar, and also a lot of online connection because of the book that I did on the Auschwitz practice, where you, Anita, also had a story or contribution in. So we had a lot of connection, and as you said, Lisa Marie, it was always so down to earth and very straightforward and plain and easy. So I really feel very grateful about that. And the other thing is that there is a dream connection. So I have a couple of very meaningful dreams where Bernie appeared. One actually last week around this day of his dying, where he appeared in I don't need to tell the dreams, but they are very important to me, and they have messages, and he did a ceremony when my father died in my dream a week later, and so he's very present in my underconsciousness too. The first dream I had with him was sitting on a swing with him together on a swing and just swinging and chatting, and it was this atmosphere that kind of informed my whole connection to him, this lightness and this just not unhierarchical and easy way of feeling free together, and fearlessness. Fearlessness is what I take most from him. So you see, my heart is pouring over, and I could go on telling stories like this, but I won't. So thank you for listening.
Anita.
It occurs to me that, well, I went to Auschwitz and met Bernie for the first time, not as a Zen practitioner. I've been practicing in the Insight tradition, and still that's, I feel, my home base. And yet, reflecting on the years since then, and how my practice in daily life, and especially in social, as an activist in social and political movements, has been so influenced by what I learned, and in particular by the 3 tenets practice. And most recently, I like as Lisa Marie, I've been very involved in the climate movement, and I can just see how the experiences that I had because of the Zen Peacemakers and Bernie's wisdom around the 3 tenets is just constantly coming up for me. I remember being at Auschwitz and sitting at Birkenau, and how much the place itself, our connection, or our intention to listen, not just to each other, but to the place, to the stories we heard, and just to the buildings and to the earth that we sat on. Which contained the ashes. And to me, that's just been such an important aspect of this work that I'm trying to do with others, because I think it's something we've lost a long time ago, as a culture, that that understanding of oneness, not just with other beings, but with the earth itself. And when I came back from the Black Hills, I started working with a wonderful organization called Idle No More, which is an indigenous women's, an organization of indigenous women, been working to protect the earth, and in particular in the Bay Area, the water. I went on these ceremonial healing walks past and in the area of the oil refineries that surround the San Francisco Bay. All this under the leadership of these amazing women. And I just feel such a connection, growing connection to indigenous teachings, as in such a correspondence with the teachings of the Buddha. And most recently, then, this consciousness of, or this integration of the bearing witness practice into my own way of looking at the world and experiencing the world came up because we've been having or organizing as a little Buddhist Sangha called Sacred Resistance. We've been organizing climate conversations, just an attempt to offer a place for people to come together and talk about how this collapse of of life around us, because of climate change, because of colonialism and capitalism, and this relationship that we've inherited of destruction, how that's affecting people, encouraging people to grieve. And we were talking about sort of the agenda for this next meeting, And I realized that people were really trying to come up with, well, what do we want to happen out of this meeting? And I started talking about bearing witness practice. And it was such a relief. These were, just a small group of people that don't know bearing witness practice. And it was just such a relief for people to land on that not knowing piece, to understand that not knowing, or to hear that as, oh yeah. And then also that loving action will arise, that kind of trust that we don't have to know, and people don't have to decide in this meeting, what am I going to do? They can just be trusting that by bearing witness through not knowing, loving action will arise without a timetable. And so I just wanted to say that, I'm all of a sudden I'm teaching. I'm teaching this practice to a few other people. And so Bernie has definitely been present with me this week in particular.
Thank you, Anita. I'm just doing a quick time check. We have about 20 more minutes. We want to make sure if others who haven't spoken more have an opportunity. And I see Jillian raising her hand, and I'm also seeing Martin unmuted himself. So we're going to do Jillian and then Martin. Yeah.
Oh, well, Anita, thank you for that teaching. I feel like I really need these teachings. I went to Auschwitz. I'd always wanted to go, but I was always afraid to go. And I've been pulled to Auschwitz since I was a 10-year-old kid. When I first heard about the Eichmann trials, my mom talked to me about them. And but I was always afraid to go. And I'd heard about these people that go and sit on the tracks. And I thought, oh, I want to go, but I don't really want to go on my own. And then somebody told me about the bearing witness retreat there, and I was just in right away. And I practiced Buddhism, but not Zen, and so I went as a really innocent person in that sense. I didn't really know who Bernie Glassman was. I didn't really know that whole community, and my memory, my deepest memory is when my heart cracked open, is when we were standing under the tree where some relics of his wife are there, and did that ceremony of calling out to hungry hearts, and I guess it's called Gates of Sweet Nectar, and I say that every day. It just everything just seems so clear. And my other memory of him from that retreat is when they had the large council in the evening, and he came and spoke a little bit, and I just got this sense of who he was, and the love that surrounded him, how everybody was there to care for him and look after him. And I also had a sense that this was his health was very poor, but he'd made this effort. And I don't, because I didn't have the histories, but I just really had this sense that something was changing. Bernie he would still be there in spirit, but he was gone, and so other people were stepping up to try to fill this space, and changes were coming. And I can't remember the name of the person who just said it, but it's like me. It's like it's a stew that's still cooking inside me, and I noticed that I struggle with I'm on Facebook, and I have a lot of Buddhist friends and other friends. They have very, very strong opinions about all the things that are going on in the world. There's the states, and I try to bring what I learned to those discussions. And I feel like I don't know it well enough to do it skillfully, but having compassion for everybody and understanding how humans are just so capable of such wonderful, like anything on every spectrum, and having compassion, something that I think we all need to know. And it's almost like you have to be brave to even say it, because you get attacked for even that idea. So being with you today, I feel very humble, and I now that I've got this technology sorted out, I'm really hoping and intending to keep learning. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Gillian. Thank you, Gillian. It's such a pleasure to, not having met Bernie, but such a pleasure to be able to listen to the stories and the memories that people are bringing forth into this council. And there are endless stories and memories that I hear since becoming involved with the Zen Peacemakers three to 4 years ago. I'm very thankful for the teachings and Bernie's, and I think for me personally, in terms of my own personal transformation, what's been wonderful for me, and what I love about the 3 tenets and so forth, is it has allowed me to fully integrate with fluid and with effortless kind of ease, more than other kind of times in my life, my integration of a Christian practice, which included 8 years in the seminary, and a Zen practice, which has included being active in the Diamond Sangha community here in Melbourne, and also integration of my social work practice over the last 30 years with various groups, and currently as a family therapist and team leader with adolescents with serious and life-threatening eating disorders. So for me, it's been wonderful to be able to have this order of sort where it allows me to utilise those 3 traditions, 3 practices, and 3 sort of personal histories, as well as the disorder that occurs as Rami had mentioned, in Bernie's teachings. And currently sort of studying the precept of utilising your ingredients and not being stingy about it, which brings humour and lightness and wonder to the sort of spiritual sort of quest. Last week I was fortunate enough to speak and share some of this experience with a group. It's a new group in Melbourne that's working towards social action. It's called itself Contemplatives in Social Action. There's a way of utilising the many different spiritual traditions and practices. And there was one person who came up who was very taken by the conversation that was had in terms of her own experience of moving away from her historical spiritual tradition in the context of and feeling disconnection with her family, with her parents, and how the conversation has rekindled a desire to rekindle with her spiritual tradition, but not let go of her activist and engaged Buddhist practice. So without effortless, I gave her Bernie's Bearing Witness book and allowed her to take that with her, and felt like that was a gesture that showed that the spirit and the teachings and the practices continue to touch people's lives in many, many different ways, in the same way as it has in the sharing today. So thank you.
I'm acknowledging we have about 10 more minutes. If anybody else would like to speak, you can raise your hand. I can take a moment to just invoke Bernie's in his later years, especially after his stroke. It's I realize it's a glimpse of his life that people have had in a very limited way. You know, during he would do webinars and try to appear online because this was really the only way to appear, and he really loved it. And I remember sitting with him, and he would always be so delighted when people would come up and ask questions. Um, and we always had this. Had this dilemma because people would come and either expect a third, like an hour of teachings, or just exchange with him. Sometimes his energy will be spent in 20 minutes and 30 minutes. And as somebody who's kind of like supporting him and his well-being, and at the same time feeling responsible for the offerings and what he's offering and people's expectations, and so I remember being a bit torn about that, and always just acknowledging that he comes first, just his body. We had his nurse that was with him, Ray Cook, has been with him for the last year and a half, and she would always say she's never seen anybody has engaged so soon after stroke and after being also going through radiation, and so she was happy, and I was also happy when he actually slowed down and tried not to do as much. And his last trip to Auschwitz was a real hard journey for him and for other people who supported him. Eve Marco, his wife, we had somebody who was with him throughout the whole retreat, and it was really hard. So I'm just acknowledging that, and just acknowledging, whether some of you are caretaking somebody in your family, or maybe you're working with caretakers, but it takes a lot of effort, and sometimes this effort is not really being seen. And I feel I've really supported as much as I could, but there have been really people like Eve and Ray and Ari who have been really there day in, day out. So just appreciating that. And also just appreciating his vulnerability, and what a great teaching it was to be with him when he would, express how nervous he was before going online and speaking with students, because he would, I loved, I think Anita shared that, of like that, if you feel fear, you're not far enough in not knowing. And he was just really humbly saying that. He would just say, I don't know what I'm going to say. And he wanted to really show up, and he wanted to be beneficial and teach the way he used to. And sometimes he would say, I don't know what I'm going to say, and he was feeling concerned about it. And I thought, what a teaching, what humility he had. Yeah. And I'm very grateful, kind of this full circle, 7 years since I met him in Auschwitz in 2013. And I feel a renewed sense of gratitude, and I wish he was actually here, that I could actually speak with him from this place. I feel his passing actually facilitated for me also a certain shift and change and growth for me. So I'm both celebrating what his gift to me, and also mourning that he can be here in flesh. Seeing that, I am aware that he is here, and he's looking at me through 10 other people right now. So I'm always at awe of how many more people he have reached, and also I just coming to a bigger appreciation that, we speak about the three tenets, and in Grayston we talk about open hiring, and there's even us as the Zen Peacemakers, we have a way of kind of like using the three tenets as kind of like the center of everything. And I'm realizing, he was even his gifts were even beyond that. To just think that his gift is just the three tenets or open hiring is good. It's a way for us to speak about it. But he really brought a sense of vitality and creativity and an openness to my life that I feel inspired by. And I'm laughing because I remember in the first year, I was afraid to take a full breath full around him because he would smoke cigars and it would literally pain my lungs until after 3 months, actually, my trial ended as my first 3 months on trial. And I said to him, listen, this is a great gig. I'd love to continue, but I just can't be in the same space with you and smoke. And the following day, he said to me, okay, I guess I'm not going to smoke around you. So relieved. Um, also knowing just how much he liked that. So I'm taking that breath right now. Yeah. So I'm seeing David in the moment I'll let David speak. And maybe after David, if there's another short sharing. And then I would love to do a dedication. I have something in mind. And then I'll have a few announcements. Thank you, David.
I'm feeling right now this feeling of deep gratitude. One of the reasons I did the Bearing Witness Auschwitz retreat was to stand shoulder to shoulder with a lot of people who were doing what they were thinking to help their fellow man. And I'm feeling right now, sitting here with you all, that same feeling that I'm able to stand shoulder to shoulder with people working to make our world a better place. And a part of that feeling has to do with what Eve Marco said last week at the yard site for Bernie in Auschwitz. And what she said was that she was thankful that we were there, adding to the energy of all the people who had done the Bearing Witness retreat, that we didn't know what that energy was accomplishing, but it was getting something done on a very big scale. And I'm feeling that even here today. And so I just want to thank you all for joining together with me and Rami and revealing yourselves.
Thank you so much, David. So we have about 5 more minutes, and I'm appreciating the coming together of everyone. In the different phases of Bernie's life, meeting him and just being inspired by his life. Also appreciating Sasha and Frederick listening in, and Ray's participation earlier, and also knowing that there's a lot of others who wanted to join and possibly couldn't. So we're going to share this council online, the recording of it. Maybe before we close, I would just love to say that at December 7th and 8th, we're going to be hosting a 24-hour vigil meditation. So that's a 24-hour meditation long day. I'll be co-facilitating it with Elizabeth DeBold from One World in Dialogue. and that is dedicated to our planet. And it would be a 24-hour facilitated guided meditation, prayer, ceremony with different presenters from different faiths. We have a female mystic rabbi. We have a Sufi teacher who's going to lead us in prayer. We're going to have several indigenous people from different places around the world leading in prayer. And those would be leading us through the first about 40 minutes of each 3-hour blocks. And then we'll just meditate through that. And then the next 3 hours, there'll be another presenter. You can come into any part of it and join in. And this is also something that was inspired by Bernie. And it's held in the bearing witness, the context of the bearing witness context that's been happening everywhere. I also just want to acknowledge Anita, who's connected us to Tanisara, who's a wonderful teacher working in climate. She's one of the presenters who's going to be leading us. So it's by donation, so you can join any part of that. So this is another way to kind of plug into this field that David spoke about. And I would love to just close this by dedicating it to Bernie and to the myriad ways that his love and stubbornness and creativity and vision will continue into the future. And I actually would love to chant this Gate of Sweet Nectar, just that first opening piece. And I'm going to send a link on the chat to anybody who wants to go with us. You can just follow that link. And I did hear Lisa Marie's excitement around it, and I wonder if Lisa Marie, if you'd like to lead us in it. And unfortunately, we can't have our mics open at the same time. So maybe if Lisa Marie can unmute. And
I just started learning it, Rami. I need to have the words in front of me.
so if you click that link.
Where is it?
In the chat.
Because even the tune.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops. Oh. Here, hold on a second. Let me do this and see if you can hear it.
Now, like I said, unfortunately, we can only have one feed of audio, so we'll need everybody else to mute. I'll mute myself too, but we can do that together.
Here, I'm gonna put Krishna Das here, and we can sing it with him.
Everywhere through endless time, you wander, you thirst. I offer you this body mine, calling out to hungry spirits everywhere through endless time, calling out to hungry hearts, all the lost and the left behind. Gather round and enjoy this meal, your joy and your sorrow, I make mine. Calling out to hungry hearts, everywhere through endless time, you wander, you thirst. I offer you this body mine, calling out to hungry spirit, everywhere through endless time, calling out to hungry hearts, all the lost and the left behind. Gather round and share this meal, your joy and your sorrow, I make it mine. You who wander, you who thirst, I offer you this holy mount. Calling out to hungry spirits, every way through endless time. Calling out to hungry hearts, all the lost and the left behind. Gather round and share this meal, your joy and your sorrow, I make it mine.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in your joys and your sorrows. I'm going to unmute everyone. We'll just say goodbye. And let's take this wonderful spirit, Bernie's, forward. Thank you, Lisa Marie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you, Martin, for waking up so early in the morning, joining
Thank
us.
you.
Forward
Thank
watching.
you, Rami. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen.
Bye, everyone.
Love.